It's the unprecedented third edition of the EWA Podcast. I'm here with half of the EWA Tag Team Champions. We're here to touch on a lot of topics, including WWE, EWA, and the mysterious death and disappearance of one Dolph Ziggler. I'm here to show the world. I'm here to show the world. Come on! All right, I know that you're all worried about Dolph Ziggler, but let's give it some time. We're here. It's the third edition of the EWA Podcast. The feedback has been tremendous from you guys so far. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I thought I would go with something a little different. I'm not looking for entertainment value this week, nor informational. I just kind of wanted someone to come on and just talk. So this week I'm thrilled and elated to welcome half of the EWA Tag Team Champions. It's Cleve, and Cleve is the controller of Kevin Nash and Bully Ray. Cleve, thanks for joining us this week.
No, sir, thank you. It's truly an honor.
And if you've read the shout box, you know that there's a certain history to Cleve and I. Cleve has some unrequited love issues with me, but in some stirring developments, I found out before this podcast began that Cleve is actually a married man.
I didn't want to bring it up. I didn't want to break your heart. I didn't want to break my heart in the process. But it's true. I am married. Now, I do want to say that doesn't mean we're not BFFs. It doesn't mean a necklace wasn't sent. It doesn't mean I don't have half of it and Craig doesn't have half of it. We still rode the teacups. Don't get too worried.
Yes. Okay, and by the way, that pearl necklace you sent me was it was a work of art. It almost looked homemade. Was that homemade?
Thank you. I was thinking about you when I picked it out.
Well, I could tell. I could tell. And going on from this marriage that you're a part of, you and I spoke before we started recording here, and a couple weeks ago, Brett and I talked about how you explain e-fetting to was it Brett and I or was it JD and I that did that?
I thought it was Brett, but now that you say something, maybe it was number two.
I got to tell you, I've done so many podcasts that I have a hard time keeping up with who I've said what to anymore.
Just let it fly.
Okay, well, I said in a previous podcast about how you explain e-fetting to your significant other, and you said that you had some experience with this issue. So why don't you go ahead and let us know how you told your wife about what it is that you do.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's tough enough to tell any female what it is the hell we do on this thing. But it's even tougher when that female is your wife and she lives with you. Mm-hmm. So how I handled this was I'm a big fantasy sports guy, big fantasy sports nerd, basketball, football, NASCAR, whatever. So I just equated that to fantasy wrestling. Because if you really think about it, it's sort of like what we do. So I explained it as fantasy wrestling. But then I thought, you know what, it's more than that. It's a lot of writing, too. So I explained it as, and this is no joke, exactly what was said on the podcast, a creative writing contest mixed with fantasy wrestling. And it's worked, so I'm rolling with it.
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty accurate description. And if you want to be like the least common denominator about what it is that we do, you know, if you're going to tell a wife or a girlfriend, that's the route you have to go down.
Yeah, because you can't really say what it is.
No, you can't tell her, well, honey, you see this 7-foot man who has robot quadriceps? That's who I am pretending to be online. Because then it sounds like you're almost catfishing the rest of the roster. Like you're maybe that is what we're doing. Maybe we're just catfishing everyone.
We were catfish before catfish was cool.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like Neve and his film crew might show up at my door any second now, expecting Cody Rhodes to walk out.
Hey, man, that would make for some good TV.
Yeah, and I would totally play along with it, too.
Yeah, so I did that. I explained it that way. What I don't want to say is, it's a bunch of guys, one of us with a small hand, the rest of us with two normal-sized hands, where he'd make a lot of homosexual jokes and drug references, but it's cool. It's cool.
It's like any other forum on the Internet where guys are talking.
Yeah, it's pretty much.
Yeah, so let's move on to what you're doing professionally in the EWA, and I use that term very loosely.
Yeah,
let's talk about the tag team championships, and I know that we're kind of going off from how we usually flow this podcast, and I like to talk about your guys' history and stuff, but I really want to get into this right now to make sure that it gets in.
You're the boss.
There has been a lull in tag team activity for probably the last 4 or 5 months, which would be a pretty accurate representation. You guys, if I remember correctly, were the only actual real tag team involved in the Super Brawl match itself. And now it seems like there are these super teams coming out of the woodwork, like whenever Hogan and Savage got together.
Right.
And it was such a big deal, and Triple H and Stone Cold had that run for a while, and the Rock and Sock connection. It's stuff like that. Now you have guys like John and Vic teaming up, 2 great writers. You have guys like myself and Brett teaming up, two
awesome writers.
One great writer and Brett. And now the tag team division is maybe the most competitive division in the EWA. And when you're on top and you're looking out at that now, how do you react to that?
Honestly, I take it as an honor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if traditional tag teams, one handler picks a character, the other handler picks a character, and they work a storyline where it's an actual tag team, for lack of a better way to describe it, and then now we've got superstar tag teams. We've got John and Vic. That's a whole different thing. We've got Ed controlling, 19 different characters, probably a tag team in there somewhere. So I look at it as an honor because everyone else is having to reinvent themselves, which means we're clearly doing something right. But I mean, it's obvious. I'm from Cleveland. I go by Cleve. So this reminds me a little bit of the whole LeBron James thing. And maybe I'm still bitter. And maybe my attempts to kill myself haven't worked after the whole decision. But LeBron goes down to South Beach. He teams up with other superstars, and he finally gets his ring. I feel like that's a little bit of what's going on in the EWA.
You think so, huh? For current reference, right now, Cavs 28, Heat 20 into the first.
And that, you're going to have to revive me with those paddles because I'm pretty shocked myself.
Okay. So you look at it as people trying to go and form super teams. So in your analogy, I mean, do you think it's like who do you see yourself as in this? Like if these people are going together to create these super teams, do you guys feel like you may have changed how the game is played when it comes to the tag team division? Do you think you guys are setting, like new ways and standards in which tag team role playing is taking place?
Well, I almost think we're the old guard still hanging on, and it's everyone else who's reinventing themselves, if that makes sense. So we're the homegrown talent. We're the grew up, went to college, went to the pro team nearest to the college, worked hard, teamed up for a long time. The old guard holding on. We look at it as, or at least I do, I don't want to speak for Fuzz, but I look at it as everyone else is reinventing themselves. And don't get me wrong, I think it's good. We all can't do the same thing, but I think it's just taking an interesting turn.
Do you think that there's a benefit to having 2 separate handlers control a tag team, or one rather than one person controlling a tag team?
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. I've actually tried a single handler with 2 characters one time, and it was a disaster. There's a couple of reasons. Yeah. One, it's just not fun. It's always a lot more fun to bounce ideas back between 2 people. It's also a lot more productive. You've got 2 people putting into one match. It's half the work. I mean, simple math, now I'll probably tell you I haven't even graduated college, but simple math tells me that it is a little bit easier.
Yeah. And so what's the creative process like between you and Fuzz? How do you guys communicate, and how do you guys come up with these ideas for these role plays?
Well, I guess I should probably start by saying I've been working with Fuzz for probably close to a decade now, I think is a safe assumption.
Wow.
Yeah. And we've actually worked with Ed back in the day too, and Monty, who, has a lot of history around here. And that's actually how I found EWA. But anyway, so the creative process used to be we'd send each other emails, we'd send each other text messages, and we'd kind of go that route. Then Brett, being the IT guru that he is, turned us on to...
he's so smart. He's so smart.
He's turned us on to Google Drive, and it's really made things so much easier. Because when I'm at work wanting to kill myself, I can turn the computer off for a minute, pull up my phone, go on Google Drive. My work blocks Google Drive, bunch of bastards. So I pull out the iPhone and I go on Google Drive. It's been really cool, and it's really helped a lot.
No doubt. And I'd like to take this time out for a... Let's take a little 2-minute break, and then we'll come back and talk about some more stuff. The previous segment was brought to you by Google Drive. Google Drive for all your Photoshop, Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, and other needs. Google Drive. Just drag, drop, share, create, learn. That's Google Drive by Google. All right, and we're back here. We're talking about Cleve and Fuzz and their history. Now, you guys have been working together for almost a decade, right?
Right.
Does your wife know about Fuzz?
So here's the funny thing. She refers to him as my pen pal. And she kind of makes fun of me. There'll be jokes. Somebody's in jail writing a letter to somebody else kind of thing. And somebody's doing charcoal drawings of each other. And she's a good sport about it. But she does joke, where's your pen pal? And she knows a little bit about him. I tell her a few things about him just so she doesn't think, it's another girl. And now let me preface this by saying, if you knew what I look like, you would know she has nothing to worry about. But I do like to make sure she's got nothing to worry about there. And right. The thing about Fuzz is he's the single busiest guy in the world. So I don't talk to him nearly as much as I used to. But the nice thing is we've been working together for so long that we kind of anticipate how a role play is going to go. If I started, I know how he's going to finish it. We rarely review each other's work. There's a lot of familiarity.
Have you ever met Fuzz?
I haven't. So I live in Cleveland. He's from Chicago. He's currently in Indianapolis, though, and that's only about a 6-hour drive from Cleveland. But I have not. But, we've talked about it, and I think it's definitely something we're going to do. Provided you're willing to go along, of course, it'd be a lot more interesting.
Yeah, and, we could get you guys... maybe the EWA roster could raise some funds and get you guys, like, a hotel with just one twin bed in it. And you guys could just,
or a cot.
Yeah, a cot in there.
Well, actually, the dude named Stevie T, who I don't know that well, he handled Stevie Richards, obviously. He recently messaged me about an EWA meetup asking me if I was a UKer, and I told him, I wasn't, and he asked me if I lived in Illinois. I said no, but I do live close. So there has been a groundswell, if you will, for an EWA meetup.
Okay, so he asked you if you were an underwear kicker, and you weren't?
Exactly.
I'm a little surprised by that.
Exactly.
Now, would you say that your wife ever got jealous of the relationship that you and Fuzz have?
If she knew all the details, absolutely. But no, based on what's out there, no, we're good.
Who have you known longer, your wife or Fuzz?
Oh, Fuzz, no doubt.
Wow. Tell me, quick tangent. Tell me about Fuzz's afro.
So he is one of these guys. He's like a musician. He's very, I'm going to be calm, but I'm going to head down to the coffee shop and I'm going to play my bass. And no, I'm just kidding.
That's fine, yeah.
But no, Fuzz has got the afro going. He's got the beard, but he can pull it off. He's sort of like that intellectual Damien Sandow meets Van Hammer. He can pull it off.
I was just getting ready to make that assumption and draw the line between those two guys. Van Hammer and Damien Sandow.
I see a tag team popping up on the application box as we speak.
Yeah, coffee house bass player.
Right?
It's gonna be a big one. All right, now 10 years together. That's a long time. Let's go back to just before Super Brawl, when the Super Brawl series was going on. 4 members involved to name the last Super Brawl captain. Second week comes along, and Kevin Nash and DDP are set to face off, and it never happens. The match never takes place, no role plays were done, and the match never goes off. DDP and Kevin Nash were thus eliminated from the Super Brawl series. Was that the first time in your guys' history that your characters had been pitted against each other?
No. Every booker out there, e-booker, whatever, Everyone tries to
Booker T?
Everyone tries to pin Cleve and Fuzz up against each other, and it ain't going to happen. So the cat's out of the bag there as far as that's concerned. We're going to find a way out of it. It doesn't benefit either of us to do that. So we got to thinking, we're talking, how can we do this without being complete buzzkills? How can we figure out a creative way not to fight? And so we got to talking, and we're like, screw this. Let's just get disqualified from the friggin' thing, and then we'll talk to Newt. I'm sure he'll be down because it's a story, and he likes new stuff, unique stuff. Sure enough, he was down. He played it off, and then we got to talking to Brett, who I think talked to you, and one thing led to another. And I think, and obviously I'm a little bit biased, but I think it turned into a hell of a storyline.
Yeah, and it benefited JD and I because I think that the role plays that we wrote leading up to that Intercontinental Championship, or excuse me, I might get stripped for saying that, but the national title match and the Super Bowl series, like that was, it couldn't have played out better, to be honest. Like initially I was like, hey, what the fuck are these two assholes doing, pieces of shit? And then, it ended up working out in everybody's favor, and then, it worked out very well. Let's move on to Super Bowl a bit. All right, we didn't talk about this, and that's probably my bad. I should have mentioned it, but I'm just going to go ahead and talk about it now. The first week of the Super Bowl series, it was Nash versus Cody Rhodes, and I'm not gonna lie, kind of like I said last week with JD, it got a little personal, and I got a little fired up when I read the stuff that you wrote. Now, do you get affected at all by what people write?
I want to say no, but I'd be lying. Of course
right.
I do. I think anytime there's competition, there's going to be people playing serious. People are, I don't want to say get their feelings hurt. I mean, we're not that big of pussies.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's going to be some people brushed the wrong way, I think. And that's how it is for any competition.
So, yeah, I kind of felt going, and then I got drafted to Vegas Connection, and I felt like going in, well, everyone here hates me because, Cleve and I kind of had it out as Nash and Rhodes, and we were kind of going for the jugular that week to try and win. And so I went into Super Bowl thinking, these guys hate my guts. How am I ever going to work with them? And, one thing led to another. I thought we had some great collaborative effort on the group role plays. I thought that was some of the most, I didn't think. It was the most fun I've ever had writing a group role play.
It was. I echo that sentiment completely. I wouldn't say I was feeling burnt out at that point, but I was definitely looking for something a little bit different. And Super Bowl is exactly what the doctor ordered, man. That was so much fun, going back and forth on the Google Drive. You can play that commercial again if you want, but going back and forth on the Google Drive, we had a hell of a time. I remember sitting back at work actually laughing as I'm reading this stuff come across the screen. And I'm not talking about your 16-year-old girl, oh my God, LOL. I mean, I was legitimately laughing out loud at that shit. It was a lot of fun.
That is correct. There were things in there that... now that I think about it, I want to touch on it again. And maybe I'm just pandering to a certain demographic of the EWA roster right here, and they just don't give a shit. But listen, I don't know if it was
podcast, man.
I know. I don't know if it was you or Fuzz that wrote something, but it was like Barry Blaustein and Cody Rhodes were kind of like having these very homoerotic conversations with one another. And I remember Brett messaging me going, you might want to check out the Cody stuff with Barry because... while it's funny, you're kind of coming across as, you and Barry are interested in one another. Was that you that wrote that?
I wish I could take credit for it, but it wasn't.
That piece of crap. He's out in some coffee house right now laughing about this.
He's super creative, and he's actually, an amazing writer. And he probably would get pissed that I'm telling you this, but he's really into writing. He's really good at it. I
think we all are, and that's why we're doing it.
Yeah, and I think that leads into it. But sometimes I think he's got to keep himself interested, so he'll do kind of some crazy, interesting things just to keep him from blowing his brains out, really is what it comes down to. And I think that homoerotic exchange was probably an example of that.
I got to tell you, when I hit call on this to you and we set this up, that was the last sentence I expected to come out of your mouth. He needed to get some of that homoerotic stuff out just so he wouldn't blow his brains out.
There we go.
But that's the beauty of the podcast.
There's no PG era on Craig's podcast.
That's right. EWA Podcast is as close as the Attitude Era as we're going to come. All right?
X.
That's right. Rated. Well, if you're going to rate something, rated X, I say.
Right on.
Now, we also spoke earlier, you don't follow WWE that much. You're not much of an avid wrestling watcher,
to be honest.
which is odd. So let me ask you this: where do you draw your inspiration and motivation from when molding this Kevin Nash character?
Well, I think I'm 26, so I grew up in NWO days, just like probably a lot of us did. So some of it comes from that, but a lot of it is just I picture this big, lazy sumbitch who's bigger than everyone else. He doesn't really want to wrestle because he's lazy, and he likes money. And really, that's a little bit of myself. I'm really lazy. I really don't want to work. I want more money, and so it kind of just comes out. And Page and Nash have a lot of history together that maybe wasn't featured in WCW, but there's a lot of history to those two guys. So when Fuzz and I put this together, we looked up some old photos, some old road stories, and we kind of just put it together. But no, I'm probably the least big wrestling fan on this site. I did watch a few Raws just to prepare for this podcast. I take this very seriously.
Well, I would hope so.
I will admit I do catch TNA every now and again because I like hurting myself, but I check it out every now and again, to watch Hogan rub suntan oil all over his daughter's naked body, because that's not weird at all.
Oh, man, we might have to take a break so I can go and take care of some
stuff.
Hey,
man, take as much time as you need.
It'll be about 30 seconds, I promise.
Story of my life.
Okay, so you and Fuzz have been together for 10 years. How was Brett brought into the...
Does that not sound like some Maury Povich shit? So you and Fuzz have been together for 10 years. So how does your families take that? I mean, that's what that shit sounded like.
Fuzz, you are not the father.
The father is Craig.
Oh, well, we knew. It was the pearl necklace.
Yeah.
How did Brett get brought into the fold of the Vegas Connection?
So it was weird. I think you probably remember Brett, was loosely associated with Nash and Page for a while. Nothing was official. There was no stable. And the reason we did that was Brett, Fuzz, and I had talked. We said, the stable thing gets a little bit overdone sometimes. So let's have a loose travel buddy, road buddy type situation. We appear in each other role plays from time to time. We appear in segments together from time to time, but we're not going to make anything official. We weren't going steady, if you will. So after a while, we decided to make it official after Super Brawl. It seemed like the right thing to do. And from where I'm sitting, it's been successful. So I think it was a good decision.
Yeah, the stable thing is difficult. And, I kind of went through that myself at the beginning of this year. You guys offered your hands out to joining the Vegas Connection, which I felt like was just a way of applying a glass ceiling to my giant box of potential. And I really felt you guys were only interested in holding me down and back.
We just wanted to hold you, period, is what it came down to, and you wanted nothing to do with it. Let me explain something here. When we say you broke our heart and we exchanged emails back and forth, PMs back and forth, there's some truth to that. Like they said, there's always a little bit of truth to every joke. So it took some time, but we're healed, and we wish you nothing but the best, except for this week. But after that...
I wasn't going to go there either, and I told Brett asked me beforehand, he's like, are you going to bring up the fact that you guys have a match against each other this week? And I go, no, it's not in my best interest. But how do you go about that? We have a match against each other this week for the tag team titles.
Yeah.
And, of course, Ed is involved as well. Ed will be on later. He's our second guest. So we'll get to him after a little. I will.
Ed and I have worked together for quite a while, too. So tell him what up.
I will. So, what are your thoughts going into this weekend's match against Barrett and Ambrose and Alberto Del Rio de Generico?
Well, quite frankly, Brett's a dick. No,
I totally agree.
In all seriousness, that Benedict Arnold, I can't believe he pulled that shit. I understand. Business is business. We got to do what we got to do. And may the best man win. We're going to put on a great show. This is easily going to be our most difficult title defense. But in a lot of ways, it's our most interesting title defense, too. It's buddies fighting buddies. We got like the real Civil War going on here. Your brothers across the other line, bayonet sticking out of his chest kind of thing. But we're going to put on a good show. We're going to make the Johns and the Bicks and the Dylans of the world, who are just tremendous writers. Hopefully they'll take a look at our stuff and be impressed. And, we'll just make some interesting stuff out of it.
What's Kevin Nash's plan and Bully Ray's plan for Civil War?
So I don't want to make an announcement. Oh, okay, so let's make an announcement right now, right here on the EWA Podcast. Kevin,
This a podcast exclusive.
Kevin Nash will be entering the Civil War. And if you think about it, it's the perfect match for him because he doesn't do wrestling moves in the traditional sense of the word. So he can just stand in there and toss motherfuckers wherever they want to go. He doesn't even have to lift a finger. It's really his perfect match. And Bully Ray's going to be in there because I don't know what else I'm going to do with him. His entire character revolves around fighting people and smashing their faces in and doing bath salts. So I think it's a natural fit for him to, fight.
Right. Now, you were in Civil War last year with Kevin Nash.
Yep.
And what number did he enter at?
I want to say he, correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say he entered last.
Yeah, and did he win?
There was a EWA board crash, part 1.
Oh.
Kevin Nash didn't win. After the board got put back up, I said, hey, everyone's feeling bad about the board crash, and it was fine. But no, he didn't win.
Oh, let's see that. I tell you, only here on the podcast will you find out the truth about Civil Wars.
The mysterious board.
So, yes, I heard that actually before the United States board crash itself in the late 1700s, the South actually won the war.
Apparently, we're reading the same history book because that's exactly what I heard.
Yes, and then all those loser underwear kickers won the Revolutionary War.
If that were the case, you and I would have one tiny hand too. And, that's not. I'm just kidding, Steve. I love you, buddy.
We'd be sitting here talking like this, talking about our jolly old wrestling programs on the EWA, and on top of the morning to you. I don't know what accent I'm doing anymore.
So I'm the worst at accents of all time, so I'm going to do one for you, and you tell me if it's any good. Be honest.
All right.
This is David Gilmour of Pink Floyd. Is that anything close?
Were you going for the lead singer of Alien Ant Farm?
Yeah.
Nailed it. You nailed it. Do you do wrestling related accents? Can I give you a wrestler? Can this be the final segment? Can I give you wrestlers and you give me the wrestling accent?
You can, and I'll just say something. I'll give it a go.
All right. Okay, let's start out with can you do Hulk Hogan?
Hey, brother, why don't you bring my half-naked daughter over here so I can rub SPF 15 all over her half-naked body? Incest!
Well, I really felt like I was on Skype with Terry Bollea right there.
Thank you.
That was impressive. Can you do The Rock?
Who?
The Rock, the People's Champion?
Oh, no. Oh, you mean, what's his name?
Dwayne.
I thought that was the guy teaming with Steve Corino was what's his name? I read through Dylan's, that was what's his name. So I guess the impression would be end of impression.
Oh, wow. I got to tell you, I can smell what you're cooking.
Yeah.
That was thoroughly impressive.
Thank you, buddy.
Let me see. Who else do we have? Can you do a... oh, man. Is there anyone you'd like to do an impression of?
So I don't want to take over this podcast, but...
Oh, no, but go ahead.
You did penis in your anus the first week. And I was hoping I'd get some penis in my anus. Because I've got something I got to get out.
All right. That coming up next, an exclusive with Cleve. We're going to have penis in your anus. And now it's time for...
Penis in your anus, 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 penis in your anus.
And penis in your anus now, where... Cleve is going to get to say, he has 30 seconds to tell me something about the WWE or the EWA or both or one or the other that it's a real pain in his anus.
Before we go, can we just say one thing? How do we sit here and not talk about the death of one Dolph Ziggler?
Oh, you know what?
Can we have a moment of silence?
Yeah.
We're going to bow our heads.
Do we need a 10-bell salute here?
Do you have a 10-bell button?
No, I have one bell I can just hit 10 times, though. All right, and that was our 10-bell salute to Dolph Ziggler. Now,
R.I.P.
Now, you saw what happened in the shout box. Can you help me piece together what happened here? Dolph and Newt were friends?
Okay, so I don't want to be the kind of guy that spews a bunch of bullshit, but I'll tell you what I know. Okay. Everything else is speculation, but what I know is that apparently Dolph Ziggler and Newt were friends, and or Dolph Ziggler and GM Harry Smith were friends. There was some kind of friendship going on, which if you consider how little we know about the man they call Newt, They could be best friends. Who am I to tell you it's not true?
You know what? They might be the same person.
Bingo.
Oh, my God.
Also, I did learn that Dolph Ziggler went to the store. There was no further information because Sir gave him the iron boot. We never found out what he bought, what store he went to. He could still be there.
So let me put this together. Dolph Ziggler went to the store, and when he got back from the store, he was banned from the forum.
Gone.
Let that be a lesson to you, the EWA universe.
Shop.
Don't ever fucking go to the store.
If your ass goes to Target, Walmart,
ever,
or whatever, British Walmart, whatever. If you do that, you're gone.
If you run out of groceries,
starve to death.
You either need to decide you're gonna starve to death, or you're gonna get kicked out of the EWA.
And if a life without EWA is not worth living, so suck it up, fatties.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Oh, I gotta tell you, this is the saddest thing ever. And now Dolph Ziggler's dead, and he's trying to come back as the Undertaker.
And Dad and Taka Michinoku and I don't know.
Taz and Mark Henry.
Taz.
We don't know who these people are, and he's probably Diamond Dallas Page.
And Nash.
Yes. And Steve. And Steve is Ed, and Ed is Steve, and they're this some sort of Steve-Ed hybrid who plays Dolph Ziggler. It's so hard to keep up with any of this stuff,
Really,
man.
There's only 4 guys in the Fed. There's Steve, Ed, Dolph Ziggler, and Newt.
Yeah, and Dolph Ziggler and Newt are the same person.
So there's really 3 people. So really, I'm Steve. This is Steve, Mr. Steve Waters.
I can tell. Between you and I hope Steve doesn't listen to this, I kind of hope Steve goes to the store soon.
Steve-O, hit up the store, baby. You got to be hungry.
Steve, you got to need some groceries,
you're
man.
looking skinny, bro.
All right, let's get back to the thing at hand. Thank God for editing. Let's talk about the penis in your anus.
Yeah, so I've got a penis in my anus the size of the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
The EWA has been around for so fucking long. Every wrestler that I want to play is taken by somebody. Stevie Richards, Shane Douglas. We've got this Hall of Fame. We got to release these guys. They got to show face, or we got to put them out there on the market so we can gobble them up and start playing these guys. It's a pain, and it's in my anus.
Well, you guys heard it right here now. Cleve wants to gobble some men up.
You got it. And some old, over-the-hill, fat, drug-riddled, aging men. Actually, Stevie's a big, fitness guy now, I saw.
Stevie Richards? Is that so?
Yeah, he's like this big, fitness, running type bullshit all the time. It's gross.
What's Stevie Ray doing, Booker T's old partner?
Stevie Ray is working as a parole officer.
Is this true?
No, I don't know. I heard he's probably working at a door factory because they had a hiring after Perry Saturn dropped out.
Oh, Perry Saturn.
Hey, did you hear that? He saved a guy from a fire one time.
Really?
It's pretty badass.
Just to do anything with Perry Saturn, let alone be safe from a fire.
Or maybe he got shot saving somebody. I don't remember.
Man, this sounds like a good story. How would you feel about starting new characters that you be Perry Saturn and I'll be Brooke Hogan, and you can save me from a fire, and Hulk Hogan will shoot Perry Saturn while you're saving Brooke, and then we'll have this Survivor story?
If you pitched that to TNA, you'd be in Dixie Carter's mansion right now.
Listen, there's something I haven't told you.
Oh boy.
Or anyone in the EWA universe. I actually work for TNA.
Makes sense.
And the Aces and Eights storyline is actually going to result in Paulton Burchill's wife losing her baby.
That's tragic.
Spoiler alert!
Steve's going to be so pissed when he finds out about this.
My bad. I fuck that up every time. You're supposed to say that before you say the spoiler, aren't you? Every fucking time.
Sorry, buddy.
Oh, that's all right. Hey, listen, I think that we've given the people enough of what they want to hear. Absolutely no WWE content, just me and you shooting the shit. This has been an absolute treasure trove of stuff here. If I ever do a best of podcast, it's going to be 20 minutes of this, 5 minutes of JD, and just me talking during Brett's podcast.
Which was the best part of that one.
Yeah, exactly. The best part of Brett and I's podcast was the part where he shut the hell up and I talked.
I checked the Nielsen ratings, and they were at the highest when he finally hung the fucking phone up.
Yeah, exactly. And then he wanted to, blame other stuff on how his connection sucked.
No, my internet wasn't working.
That's his problem. It's always someone else's fault.
Yeah, typical
Enough
triple problem.
you know what? Enough of bitching about him in this podcast. I'm just going to have him back on sometime, I guess.
Well, and let me tell you, honestly, it was very cool being on. I've heard these podcasts time, and they're always horse shit. It was so good to hear this, man. You've done such a great job. It was my honor. Of all my very little accomplishments in life, this ranks at the top.
All right. Well, thanks again. There will be no podcast next week. I'm actually traveling out of town next weekend, so I got to bust my ass to get these role plays done for Civil War. Best of luck to everyone involved. Best of luck to you this weekend in your tag team title match. Best of luck to everyone involved in the Civil War match next week. Best of luck to Bryce and Teasy. It's going to be a hell of a match. Best of luck to you, Low-Key. And this has been great. I thank everyone for listening. Any feedback or comments are appreciated. If you want to join me, just feel free to send me a PM and we can get something worked out. Cleve, have a great night. Cavaliers up 12. A minute to go till halftime. Have a good one, bud.
Take care, buddy. Thanks a lot.